Why, hello, everybody. This is Eric Beerthaler 92, aka Eric the Tyrannoceratops, here once again. So, welcome to the interview that I did with Junebug Films with Sarah Karloff. Yes, that Karloff, the daughter of Boris Karloff. So, I do apologize for this interview coming late. We did the interview back in March, but hey, better late than never, right? I really hope it's worth the wait for all of you. I've just had a lot going on. So, yeah. Just, I want to make one disclaimer. This is my first time ever doing an interview. And, sometimes we can be our own worst critics. I was really awestruck talking to Sarah Karloff because I've known about her my entire life. So, I stuttered a lot because I was so awestruck talking to Sarah Karloff. I was trying to remain as professional as I could, but I think I personally could have done better, but hey, maybe you, the viewer, might have a different opinion. Regardless what your opinion is, let me know in the comments down below, and there will be more interviews coming in the future, so whichever mistake that I might have made with this interview, I can learn from it for the next interview. So without further ado, let's not waste any more time. Let's get straight to the interview with Sarah Karloff. Enjoy.
Hi.
I'll see you guys later.
How are
Hi
you?
there. I'm fine, thank you.
All right. So, anyways, I guess I'll just ask my first question.
Okay.
So, have you seen the Ed Wood movie with Johnny Depp? And if so, what did you think of the movie? Because your father actually was mentioned in that movie, so I was just wondering if you have ever watched it.
I saw it quite a while ago. Yes, when it close to when it first came out. Yes.
And when you saw it, what were your thoughts on it?
I thought it was creative. Bela Jr. and I are great friends, and so he had told me about it. I thought it was. I had nothing to measure it against as to its veracity, but I think it gave credit where credit was due.
Uh-huh. Alrighty, thank you for answering that. So how do you feel about the original 1931 Frankenstein becoming public domain in a few more years?
I think Universal Studios will have a nervous breakdown.
Yeah, probably, yeah, especially considering that the original was one of their biggest hits.
Well, yes, it is, and they have not treasured it as they should have. And what year does it become, PD?
I believe 2027, so around there, I believe. It may not be exact, but I'm pretty sure it's somewhere around that.
I hope I live that long.
Yeah, well, one way to see
is to do it.
Yeah. So, what are your thoughts on the modern cinema with the superhero craze? Could you see the Frankenstein monster fitting into that realm at all?
No, because the monster really was the victim and not the perpetrator, and responded to violence. He didn't create violence of his own volition, And I think today's films are violent for the sake of violence. I think they insult the intelligence of the audience. They don't invite the audience to use its imagination. I think they dump the gore right in the laps of the audience. So I think we're talking about two different animals.
All right. Have you ever read the Mary Shelley Frankenstein novel?
Yes.
And when you read it, what were your thoughts on it?
Well, I think it's a work of art. I think it's amazing for the time frame in which it was written. I think it certainly has stood the test of time. It is cherished as a iconic novel. I don't think the film followed the storyline. It wasn't intended to. It's a shame it didn't. I think it's a brilliant work of writing. I think it's amazing for someone her age to have written it.
Yeah.
All those things.
Yeah, like I believe she was 18 or something when she wrote it, but I could be wrong, but at least it was approximately around that range. Like 18,
correct.
Like 20,
18, 19, yes.
Yeah. Around there, yeah. Okay, so next question. What were your father's hobbies outside of acting?
He was a very well educated man. He'd been educated for the consular service in Great Britain. So he was an avid reader. He loved gardening. He loved animals. At one time, he and my mother had 22 dogs in Beverly Hills. He adored the British game of cricket. He thought his favorite thing to do was to attend a cricket match in England. But reading and gardening were great passions of his. He enjoyed being with people and listening to them. He was a great listener. He was a very kind and funny man. He had a marvelous British sense of humor. He enjoyed cooking. But most of all, I would say reading and gardening and animals, children. He was wonderful with children. So he had a great many interests outside of acting, but he was a consummate professional and always well prepared whenever he was working.
So yeah, it certainly sounds like that your father certainly was quite the man.
He was a wonderful human being.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah. And I definitely would say that you are a very lucky person, to have him as your dad. So yeah.
Indeed, I was.
Oh yeah. So, what family vacation do you remember taking with your father?
My father was a huge. He loved to work, so vacations were a rare occurrence.
Okay. Did you and your father ever have a family pet?
A family pet?
Yeah, like say a dog, a cat, or...
Well, as I said, at one time they had 22 dogs, so indeed we had dogs. He at one time, he and my mother had a pig named Violet.
Okay.
We had a couple of cats. He had some turkeys. We had lots and lots of pets.
Okay. So
he and my mother brought the first Bedlington Terrier dog. It's an English breed. They brought the first Bedlington Terrier over from England to the West Coast in the 30s on board ship.
Okay.
It's a breed that looks like a lamb and isn't.
Okay. Well, that's pretty cool. Was your father himself a fan of terror films at all?
He preferred the word terror to the word horror, and he didn't prefer films for their genre, such as terror. He preferred them for their quality of content. If it was a good musical, if it was a good drama, then he would enjoy it thoroughly. But just for the sake of terror, no.
Okay. So, I know that your father did the animated Grinch movie. There also was the Jim Carrey one, and there was the Benedict Cumberbatch version. Did you ever see those other two versions?
My theory is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I think the animated one was superb, and no, I haven't seen the others.
Yeah, I definitely would concur with you on that. It's been a trend for a while, for Hollywood to do remakes, and I definitely feel like that they further proved that when they remade the Lion King, and the original was just so well done the first time. There's really no point in doing it again.
I agree.
All right, I'm definitely glad that we agree on that. If they made a biopic about your father, what actor can you see playing your father?
Jeremy Irons.
Okay. History is very short.
History is very short.
It's getting shorter.
And getting shorter, right? Okay.
Everything's got faster.
Right.
I think we must be coming to the tipping point.
Ooh, that would be a really good choice, actually. And it's ironic you mentioned that, because the fact that I mentioned The Lion King.
Yeah, I think he would be superb in the role. They have done many documentaries on my father. There is a new one, a relatively new one, out now on DVD, and it won a Rondo Award. And the extras on the DVD have just been nominated for a Rondo Award. It's an excellent documentary done by Thomas Hamilton and Ron McCloskey. It's really a fine documentary, but there never has been a biopic. There have been probably 8 or 9 biographies written on my father, the best of which, in my opinion, is one done by Stephen Jacobs, a British author, called Boris Karloff, More Than a Monster, and it's wonderful.
Yeah, I believe the closest that we have to a biopic was a movie called Gods and Monsters.
Not really.
I mean, I guess the closest you can get. I mean, it's more so about James Whale versus about Boris Karloff. So.
Absolutely.
But yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe you actually even were in one of the documentaries. Wasn't it the Frankenstein Files, I believe?
No. I was not in Frankenstein Files.
I just could have swore that you were in, like, at least one of the...
I've been in a lot of the documentaries about my father, yes.
Okay. Hey!
Hi there.
Simba!
Hi there. How are you, sweetheart?
Oh, good. Hey, Simba. But yeah, my dog is spoiled.
So is mine.
Hey, Simba. Hi.
Hi there. Hi there.
Hello, Miss Karloff. How are you doing today?
I'm just fine, thank you. And you?
I'm all right. You know, I'm trying to live in this world now. It's interesting now. So
Yes, it is. It's a challenge, but it's a blessing too.
yes, it is. Um, well, my question number one. What are some of your top 5 favorite movies? You know.
My favorite movies of my father's, Targets is probably my favorite. The one he did with Peter Bogdanovich. I like the ones he did with for Roger Corman, The Raven, and A Comedy of Terrors, because he had such a good time working with Peter Lorre and Vincent Price and Basil Rathbone. Those guys had known each other and worked together before, and they had such a good time spoofing their own boogeyman images. I like some of my father's very much. I liked his stage work with Julie Harrison, The Lark, and Peter Pan on Broadway. I didn't have a chance to see him in Arsenic and Old Lace on Broadway, but I have seen reproductions of Arsenic and Old Lace, and it's a wonderful play. I loved his children's albums that he recorded, about 20 of those. I love those. Rudyard Kipling and Hans Christian Andersen, and wonderful fairy tales. As I said, he was wonderful with children. So I liked a variety of his work. I enjoyed, of course, his iconic films, the 3 Frankenstein films that he made. So for a variety of reasons, I like a variety of his work.
Yeah. Well, he had a very diverse film career, really. I mean,
He certainly did.
Yeah. You know, I mean, I'm a fat guy. I like to eat, so I was wondering, what were some of Boris Karloff's favorite foods? So.
He loved sand abs. He loved flank steak. He loved smoked salmon, cucumber sandwiches that he would take to the cricket matches in England. He was a healthy eater, but he enjoyed good food.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's lovely. It's always nice having a nice good meal beside you. So, you've done little parts. Did you ever really consider a full career in acting, or not really?
I've never done any parts. I've only done interviews and documentaries, but I'm not an actress.
Okay. What? Let's see. You know, what roles? I guess what roles could you see your father in that maybe he didn't get a chance to do?
I can't imagine, because he had such a diverse career. I know the one thing he wished he'd had an opportunity to do was do a play on the London stage, and that's something he didn't get an opportunity to do. But other than that, he had no regrets, so certainly I have no regrets for him.
Yeah. I think Eric asked a very similar question. But I wonder how he would feel about, like, you know, modern Hollywood and the superheroes and the remakes and all this stuff, you know.
I think he would think it was pretty tasteless and common.
What were some of his favorite movies that maybe he talked about a lot? Or
he didn't bring his work home, and he didn't talk about other actors or much about the film industry. He was one of the founding members of the Screen Actors Guild. His card was number 9, and that was something that he felt was very important, to give up-and-coming actors an opportunity, a vehicle by which they could have their rights protected. But as far as the films he enjoyed, I know one of his actors he admired very much was George Kennedy, and he felt he was really a very fine actor. And fortunately, I met Mr. Kennedy and had the opportunity to tell him of my father's admiration of his work. But as far as films, I'm not sure which were my father's favorites of other actors.
Well, I mean, I like George Kennedy as well. I mean, he was a very underrated actor. Yeah,
Yeah, he was a lovely man too, as was my father.
Yes. What do you think is his, best performance? I mean, let's just put Frankenstein aside, because that's just the obvious answer,
Oh, I think The Body Snatcher was a fine film, fine performance. And I know he was very pleased with Peter Bogdanovich's creativity and talent in putting together the film Targets, which was which unfortunately is as timely and appropriate today as it was when it was released. It's a film about a sniper and violence on the streets, and I think it reflected my father's own opinion that the real violence is on the street, not up on the screen.
You said earlier he was a very avid reader. Did he ever talk about what were some of his favorite books?
Joseph Conrad was his favorite author, and my father was such a voracious reader. His reading covered just a huge variety of literature.
And I guess my last question: what was his dream role? That you said London stage, but you ever? I mean, I don't know if any fans have talked to you because he didn't say he didn't bring his work home with him, but I guess.
Well, I think he was very grateful for the pivotal difference Frankenstein made in his life, both personally and professionally. But I don't think he ever turned down a role because he loved what he did. He felt he was so lucky to be able to spend his life doing something he truly loved, which was acting, and then be paid for it.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's one thing I always, admired about your father. I mean, he did, hard manual labor for years, and then finally got his big break at 44. It's like he always had that admiration, never give up. So.
That's absolutely right. Frankenstein was his 81st film, and as he said, nobody saw the first 80. And he was an overnight star after being in the business 20 years. So he had paid his dues. He loved what he did. He was grateful for every opportunity he had been given. He had worked hard before he became a known entity, and he loved the business he was in.
Which is what I find so inspirational about your father, because I mentioned to you that I'm pursuing film, and getting into the business and making movies isn't as easy as it seems. And there definitely have been times where I felt like I just wasn't good enough, or I'm not going to make it. But then, just remembering that your father finally got his break when he was 44, and so and then that right there is proof that it never truly is too late. You just have to, pretty much the key is that you just have to be persistent about it. So yeah,
that's correct, and love what you do.
Oh yeah, exactly. It's because if you don't love what you're doing, then I think that you are only just wasting your time. So yeah,
and everyone else's.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah.
One of my favorite roles that I love your father in was the Mr. Wong series. And
that was an interesting series. They never had a script completed before they started shooting.
Well, I mean, I love those. I love those movies. Of course, I just love the detective genre to begin with, but especially those like 1930s detective movies. So yeah, because but I agree though. Jeremy Irons,
As your father, that's
yeah,
interesting
that's
casting.
pretty good. But I mean, we all know how it is right now. Let's just get Twitter going. Let's just search hashtag Jeremy Irons as Karloff for biopic or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be wonderful.
Oh yeah.
I'd love to see a film made on my dad. He had a very, very rich and full life, and it wasn't always easy.
Well, I mean, even though Jeremy Irons is older, like I was telling Eric, I could see maybe Benedict Cumberbatch if we want to go younger, just because, Jeremy Irons is 75 years old, so,
Yeah.
But
Makeup does wonders. Ask any woman.
Oh yeah. Definitely. And even going back to your father, it's just a shame, like by what I heard, like happened like to Jack Pierce, after the whole, like with his career later on, because that makeup that he did for the Frankenstein monster and all those other characters, he did a phenomenal job.
Oh, he did indeed. My father always said he was an absolute genius. And he was. Without that makeup, that role would have been completely different and not iconic.
yeah, and Jack Pierce, without Jack Pierce, we would not have, the Stan Winstons and, all the other great makeup effects artists without Jack Pierce, and he really was paved the way for even the Dick Smiths of the world. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And he was treated very badly by Universal.
That's a shame. Yeah. And that's one of the things I heard about Universal. I heard that Universal also treated Bela Lugosi pretty poorly, and it's a shame.
It's a big corporation.
Yeah.
yeah,
It's a shame.
it's just kind of, corporatization of, any company, can be a blessing and a curse for some, and there's negative and positives to every company. So,
Well, my father had a long run there and a very successful one, so we'll leave it at that.
yeah, he's just, even as a kid, I remember reading those, come to find out like how not factual they were, but the old books in the 70s or something, like monster books, they had Dracula, King Kong, all that stuff. I remember always reading about your Frankenstein and your father, so it's like, just his story, it's just like, wow. It was just so, it's like I said, inspirational. It's like, wow, how, he, it proves that he really, if you really love something, fight for it, so.
Absolutely. And I think that's a good note to close on.
Oh yeah, definitely. But yeah, I was just wanting to thank you for your time, and it certainly has been an honor, getting to know you, and it certainly was an honor getting to know your iconic father a little bit more. And so, I think people underestimate, like that. There certainly was more to your father versus, versus just who he was as the Frankenstein.
Oh, absolutely. But that can be said of every actor.
Yes.
But my father was a lovely human being, and I'm blessed to have been his daughter.
Oh yeah.
And thank you for this interview. I appreciate it very much. I always enjoy meeting his fan base, and I always enjoy talking about him. So thank you very much.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, no, of course. I guess on a closing note, is there, I know you, is there anything like maybe you want to plug? Because I know you are and do stuff with merchandising with your father, so.
Well, we have a web page. It's Karloff at karloff.com, and it's the home page. It's up on the web, and we have some wonderful products up on there, and we have letters from fans, and we have some wonderful art up on there giving exposure to Karloff artists, and so we invite everybody to visit our web page. Thank you very much.
Yes, of course. And yes, of course. And I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day.
Thank you. You too, both of you. Thank you
Yes, of
for
course.
inviting me on your show.
Alrighty.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
of course.
Bye.